Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. October 20th, 2017.
106 here on the great WRKO. Okay, jam-packed hour for you. Trust me, you don't want to miss the next hour. Joining us now, as he usually does at this time on Friday, is former UN ambassador and Fox News analyst John Bolton. Now, he is at a train station, so the cell phone connection may be a little rough. Ambassador, how are you?
I'm fine. I hope you can hear me. Sorry for the noise in the background.
No, that's okay. Well, it sounds almost like Cloak and Dagger now. You know, like with you, like, are you in a trench coat or something? All it's missing is a nice trench coat.
Exactly. No, this is called hiding in plain view.
Ambassador, I want to ask you, obviously, a lot about, there's North Korea, there's Iran, the decertification, but the big story now that is just growing and growing almost by the day. First broken by The Hill, and now, obviously, Sean Hannity and others, myself, have picked it up. The Hillary-Russia bribery scheme, whereby it now appears that there was an FBI informant who wanted to blow the whistle on how the Russians had penetrated our nuclear industry, bribery, extortion, racketeering, kickbacks, money laundering, all of it involved, and the Obama administration tried to cover it up. My question to you is this: should Congress launch an all-out investigation, and could this result in Hillary going to jail?
Well, I think the first thing the different committees in Congress should do is talk behind the scenes with Attorney General Jeff Sessions. You know, he is the Attorney General. I have a lot of faith in him. I've known him for many years. And if he were to say, look, I'm going to direct the FBI and the Criminal Division of the Department of Justice and the National Security Division to conduct an absolutely thorough and very prompt investigation of this whole thing, and I don't want Congress to kind of get in the middle of it, I'd be inclined to give Jeff Sessions the leeway there. Now, I hope that's what he's doing. He ducked a question by Senator Grassley a couple days ago on the point you're raising, and I think the new FBI director obviously have a lot more hope that he'll do the right thing rather than the way James Comey handled his responsibilities. But if it looks like Justice and the FBI are not going to pursue it, then I'd say it's all out for Congress here. We've got to get to the bottom of this. This is obstruction of justice, potentially. It's bribery, the use of foreign money in American political campaigns, possibly. The linkages between Obama and Hillary to make sure she got elected in 2016 are clear for everybody to see. And the notion that Comey directed the FBI not to proceed with this investigation, as he did really with the emails case, is entirely possible. So, look, there's much we don't know. We don't want to jump to conclusions prematurely, but is there enough here for a massive investigation? Absolutely.
Ambassador, my understanding from what's been reported is that the Obama administration imposed a gag order on this FBI informant, preventing him from actually going to Congress and revealing all of the incriminating information he had. This was under the Obama administration and the Obama DOJ. Trump is now in power. You have Sessions as AG. Should Attorney General Sessions, at a minimum, lift the gag order so this FBI informant can tell Congress or whoever's conducting the investigation the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Well, look, I'm a strong believer in protecting whistleblowers, but I'm also old-fashioned in my view of how you conduct criminal investigations. And the way you should do it is you do it quietly, and you don't do a lot in public. You don't do what James Comey did several times in the Hillary email investigation of telling the world what the investigation was doing or not doing. So I think we need to give Sessions a little bit of latitude here, and if to try and get to the bottom of this, for let's face it, what could be, as you indicated right at the front end of this, a possible criminal indictment, let him find out what this FBI agent knows and then decide how to proceed, because I would be very worried that if this got out in the public, you could blow the whole investigation and the possibility of criminal prosecutions. And I think to help restore people's faith in the FBI and its integrity and the integrity of the Department of Justice, we really need to get this one done right. Now, look, if it appears that for whatever reason this isn't going anywhere, then I think Congress, as I said before, should really unleash the subpoenas and find out. But in the near term, it looks to me like Sessions may understand what needs to be done, and that is the regular order. So I'd like to give him a chance, not an indefinite chance, but here in the near term, and see what happens.
Ambassador, Trump obviously announced the big news that he will be decertifying the Iran deal. You, in fact, have been a critic of that decision. For the audience, why?
Well, the decertification is the right thing to do, but it doesn't go far enough. It leaves the deal in place, meaning that all of the European companies that want to do business with Iran can continue to trade and invest. American companies can still get involved. The sanctions are still suspended. And Iran is going to continue to make progress towards getting its nuclear weapons. So I think the president adopted a two-stage approach to it. I think that gives Iran more time. Time always works for the proliferator. But I think in his speech last Friday, he was very clear that it remained with him to cancel this deal at any time. So he's kind of given Congress a chance. I'm not waiting around for them to do anything constructive. And I still believe the deal should be canceled, and I believe the president's ready to do it at the right moment. I wish it were done already, but better late than never.
Ambassador, let me just play devil's advocate for a second, because what some of Trump's supporters are arguing is the following, that he's essentially kicking it over to Congress, as you rightly pointed out, and this now puts them on the record. Do you want to reimpose sanctions on Iran? Do you want to vote finally to scuttle this disastrous deal? In other words, the very same members of Congress that keep attacking him, criticizing him, backstabbing him, grumbling, now he's going to put them on the record, sort of like with Obamacare, up or down, and that it's time for the members of Congress, especially the Republican establishment, to be held accountable. Don't just talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. What do you say to that argument?
I'd say I understand entirely what people are getting at. I share the sentiment, but Congress has 1,000 ways to avoid responsibility, and my guess is that's what they'll do here. The Democrats are never going to support more sanctions. It would undercut Obama's big achievement, I use that word loosely, of his second term, and I think Republicans will fragment. And honestly, I would say in the next 60 days from now until Christmas, I want Congress to focus exclusively on the tax cut. I want to get that done by the end of the year. I think that's critical for the president. I think it's critical for the economy. And so I'm afraid the Iran thing will get lost in the shuffle, but it will just prove what we already know, that Congress shouldn't be running foreign policy. It's for the president. Now we've got a president who appreciates the threat of the Iranian nuclear deal, who appreciates the threat that Iran poses, military action and support for terrorism in the Middle East. And unlike Obama, I really think he's poised to do something about it while Congress sits and negotiates with itself.
We're up against it, Ambassador, but I know you, and I know you're pressed for time. But I want to ask you one final question. Rocket Man this week again threatened the United States. This time he's vowing with nuclear weapons to potentially target the mainland. His foreign minister allegedly came out saying that they're not going to stop with their ballistic missile program until they have a missile that can reach the northeast of the United States, meaning obviously Washington, New York, and maybe us here in Boston. Is the time now for diplomacy over as far as you're concerned?
I think it's been over with North Korea for a long time. I think there are a few remaining things that can be tried with China. But just to reinforce your point, the director of the CIA, Mike Pompeo, said just a few days ago that we have to assume that North Korea is very close to achieving exactly that capability you referred to hit any target in the continental United States. So if there's to be the possibility of destroying their nuclear program before it becomes a real threat, we don't have much time. Look, it's not an option anybody wants, but if living under the threat of nuclear attack by the likes of North Korea or the Ayatollahs in Tehran is the other alternative, I think it's pretty clear you have to look at the military option.
We have been talking with former UN ambassador, Fox News analyst, John Bolton. Ambassador, as always, thank you so much for coming on the Kuhner Report, and have a wonderful weekend. Please don't miss your train. I don't want you to miss your train on our account.
I won't, and have a good weekend, everybody in Kuhner country, too.
Take care. Take care, Ambassador. 617-266-6868. Okay, let's go back to the blazing phone lines. Sergeant K in Nashua. You're up next. Go ahead, Sergeant K.
Hi, how are you doing today, Jeff?
I'm good. How are you?
So I have some words. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for not referring to our first Lord of War, General Mattis, as Mad Dog anymore. Thank you for making that promise and keeping it.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, the vets, I mean, you guys asked me not to do it because you said that's only the veterans that can call them that, and I never served, so you guys are completely right.
Well, I appreciate it, because that was a promise that you made to me the last time that I called, and your integrity is a shining beacon that should be held out in the media, but isn't.
Oh, thank you.
Keep stating, liberalism is not just a mental disorder, it's far worse than that. And it's proof of, I believe it was Twain that said, those who stand for nothing will fall for anything. And that's what the Democrats and the liberals in general are these days. With regards to what Trump said to the fallen Green Berets, this annoys me to no end. I have been at every aspect of what President Trump had to do, from delivering a flag at a funeral to being on the color guard to actually being there with a chaplain and an officer going into a new widow's home and explaining that her husband is never going to come home. And in every single situation, it always started with, he knew what he was signing up for. He was where he wanted to be. He was with people that he wanted to be. It is absolutely tragic beyond all imagination that your husband, your son, your father, or even your daughter gave the ultimate sacrifice. But you have to remember that this is what they knew could possibly happen, and it's the reason that they did it that matters more than their loss. The fact that liberals are slamming this one home, absolutely, beyond the pale, unbelievable. I have never been more disgusted with liberals in my life. But because they stand for nothing, they fall for anything. And all you have to do is utter the word that evil dictator Trump did something, and every single one of them, without even the slightest shred of evidence, will continue to hammer that point home to prove their false narrative.
Sergeant K, I want to be crystal clear, by the way, very eloquent. I just want to ask you this. So what you're saying is what the president told the widow, okay, of Sergeant Johnson is almost common. The way you said that it's often said.
Yes, sir. It is. In fact, when they're training us on how to do this, they tell us, key points to hit. Say things like, he was where he wanted to be. He knew what the risks were, etc. It's not a highlight of cowardice. I mean, they keep saying it as if all Trump did was pick up the phone, dialed 7 digits, held his finger up while, the congresswoman was waiting and said, oh, yeah, he knew what he signed up for, and then hung up on her. That's not the way it works. We are trained specifically in the things that we should say, the things that we shouldn't say. And one of the things that we continuously highlight is this is the job that he knew he was going to do. This is something he knew that could happen. The fact that he still did it makes him the absolute definition of a hero. It's not uncommon. It's not only not uncommon, it is unbelievably common for this to be the statement that's made. Sergeant
K, thank you for your service again, and thank you very much for this call.
Thank you for your support, sir, and you keep rocking.
God bless. I think General Kelly and Sergeant K, they just put the nails in Federico Wilson's political coffin. I mean, ay. Okay, 617-266-6868. We'll continue to take your calls. Jesus Campos, the security guard in Las Vegas, finally breaks his silence. That story and Laura Ingraham live at 1:35 for a newsmaker interview. Don't touch that dial. He speaks. Finally, he speaks. Okay, so, incredible story. So the security guard, if you remember at the Mandalay Bay, remember Jesus Campos, the guy who can actually tell us what happened on the inside of the Mandalay Bay before the Las Vegas massacre took place. And so if you remember, they keep changing the timeline. Both Mandalay Bay, MGM in particular, who owns the Mandalay Bay, and other casinos, as well as the people now investigating and the mainstream media. So if you remember, the timeline was Jesus Campos initially was knocked on the door and was shot by Stephen Paddock 6 minutes after the rampage ended. And that's why they say he was a hero, because they say by sick coming in later, he prevented possibly countless more people from being killed. Then they changed and said, no. Jesus Campos, the security guard, actually confronted the door, approached the door 6 minutes before the massacre began. Now they've changed the timeline to, no, he basically approached the door practically simultaneously when Stephen Paddock began to rain down fire upon the concert venue within 40 seconds. So 200 rounds were blasted through the door and the cheap sheetrock, and he kind of did a somersault and then began raining bullets upon the Route 91 Harvest Festival. So Jesus Campos, who was available for interviews and then said he was unavailable, skipped out on Hannity, skipped out on CNN, skipped out on everybody. They finally found him. He has agreed to do only one interview. What was that interview? I swear to you, with Ellen DeGeneres. Roll it, Brittany.
And I mean, really, he saved your life. And he saved also the woman that came out of the door to go into the hallway. I know, first of all, thank you so much for being here. And I know that you have had so many people asking for you to tell the story and to talk about this. And I understand your reluctance because you just want this to be over. So you're talking about it now, and then you're not going to talk about it again. And I don't blame you, because why relive this over and over again? But it's helpful for people to understand what a hero you are, because you, being shot in the leg, saved so many people's lives. And instead of you just getting out of there, you saved Stephen's life, you saved that woman's life, and who knows how many other people. And so we just wanted to celebrate you. That's why you're here today, because we want to thank you for what you've done. Even after this happened, instead of going to the hospital, you stayed to help the police and give them all the information they needed to piece these things together. And also, what else did you want to mention?
I just want to mention all the people that assisted that night, whether it was Metro, the FBI, the community especially coming together to help everyone in need, the first responders, even the people that got called in to assist in the hospitals, and just everything puts pieces together on how everyone came together to help that night, even in the darkest hour.
Yes, there were a lot of people that showed up to help. All right, and Stephen?
And that's it. I'm not kidding. Blank you. That's it. Blank you. Do you know who is the sponsor of the Ellen DeGeneres show? MGM. Do you know who has a contract with Ellen DeGeneres? MGM. Do you know whose face and name is on casino slots and machines at MGM casinos and hotels? Ellen DeGeneres. MGM completely staged the interview. The whole thing was staged. They don't want Jesus Campos talking to anybody else except their crony, Ellen DeGeneres. It's obvious. They see the lawsuits coming, and now it's get Jesus in, get Jesus out. MGM, shame on you. It's a cover-up. Let's take it to Evan Heidenrich And Laura Ingraham, by the way, next. Let's take it to the newsroom. Welcome back. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. And joining us now is Laura Ingraham. She's got a really rocking new book out. I read it in 2 sittings. Billionaire at the Barricades, The Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump. Do we have Laura Ingraham on?
Hey, Jeff.
We do.
How are
Laura, how are you? And welcome to the Kuhner Report.
Great to be on your show. And my whole family originally is from Boston, so it's always great to come on and be on WRKO. It's such a legendary station, and it's great to be on with you.
Oh, wonderful. And by the way, congratulations on your new show at Fox News. Our audience is behind you all the way. Laura, I'm going to ask you obviously about your book. But just before I get to that, I do want to ask you one question. And I just want to preface it by saying that I actually am a big fan of Bannon, and I agree with his strategy to primary all of these rhino Republicans. But I want to ask you a question that I get a lot from some of my listeners. You've joined forces with Bannon, at least regards Kelly Ward. And what do you say to the argument that if we start primarying all of these rhinos, like Jeff Flake and others, it's going to lead to a bloodletting in the Republican Party, and that ultimately the Democrats will benefit. They will come up the middle. They will maybe win back the House, win back the Senate, and that may lead to impeachment. What do you say to that argument?
Well, I'm not, and I've never said to challenge every incumbent. That's not where I am. In the case of Jeff Flake, he's an entirely different matter. I mean, he's someone who did not even vote for Donald Trump. He obviously is diametrically opposed to Trump on the seminal issues of the day affecting the U.S. economy, which is on the immigration issue and on the trade issue. So he, on those 2 issues that are instrumental for the election of Donald Trump, he is diametrically and is diametrically opposed to him and didn't vote for Trump. So you can't very well have a successful conservative populist presidency if key members of your own party are resisting the key parts of your agenda that you ran on. So that's number one. And number two, I would say that the Republican Party really suffered the most in the second Bush term, which is dissected in granular personal experience. In the second Bush term, when we lost the House, we lost the Senate, and ultimately, of course, we lost the presidency to Barack Obama. So back then, pretty much the party, everybody was on the same side, and the GOP for the most part. And then George Bush comes along and he pushes this immigration amnesty idea, which I helped defeat. He pushed Harriet Miers on the Supreme Court, which thankfully a few of us helped defeat. And he kept churning out the trade deals, like the Korean Free Trade Deal, kept celebrating NAFTA and the World Trade Organization, and we saw America's wealth and prosperity gradually but surely drained away. And the party nearly collapsed until 2010 came along, which was the Tea Party movement, obviously delivered the Republican majority back in the House. And thank goodness, because we were able to resist some of the Obama agenda, not all of it, but some of it. So I think the big problem for the Republicans came because of the establishment globalist GOP forces led by the Bushes dragged us into a ditch, doubling the debt, spending $4 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan, giving the green light for all these trade deals that ended up hurting middle America and deindustrializing the Midwest. And thank goodness we had someone like Trump come along and say it doesn't have to be this way anymore. We should be pushing policies that help the average people, and we got to do things differently. And it's tumultuous, and sometimes he's a little brash, and maybe he tweets too much occasionally. But we now have a president who's remaking politics in a much more, I think, pragmatic fashion, and we needed that.
Laura, do you support Bannon's war on the Republican establishment?
Well, I was the one who kind of helped lead the effort to unseat Eric Cantor, which is the opening of my book. So I've been at this a long time, and I don't know what Steve is doing on some of these cases, and I have a different role now that I'm going to be hosting a show on Fox. So my supporting Kelly Ward, predates my Fox show. I supported her when she ran for John McCain's seat, so that was a long time in coming. I don't believe I'm going to be part of the unseat the establishment deal, because I just have a different role now as a host of a primetime show on Fox.
We're talking with Laura Ingraham, the author of Billionaire at the Barricades, The Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump. Laura, there is a fascinating story about the wall, and when members of Congress, especially Republicans, hear about Trump's wall, they start laughing out loud. Could you just retell that story for the audience? Because I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. Members of the House Freedom Caucus had, told me versions of the story, and I decided to share some of it in the book. And basically, behind closed doors on Capitol Hill, the powers that be still run the party, openly laugh both at the president and his we're going to build the wall, whether or not Mexico pays for it, just the idea of building the wall. And they laugh out loud and say the equivalent of as if. So the point of telling that story and all the others in the book is that people think the establishment lost in November and they're just going to go away. And they're just going to pick up their marbles and go home. That's not how it's going to work. This battle for the future of the Republican Party has been going on in one form or another since 1976. And Ronald Reagan was the first real disruptor who took the country club Republicans, the Rockefeller Republican Party, and shook it up, almost winning the nomination, coming back in 1980, winning the presidency, slapping tariffs on Japanese motorcycle imports, temporary tariffs on steel, bringing all the wings of the Republican Party together because of the Soviet threat. Everyone was kind of together back then. But, when he was gone, we got the Bushes, HW, he loses, Buchanan and Ross Perot come along, and they say, wait a second. This party is totally off the rails. We got to get back to representing the little guy, not big corporations, big business, big lobbyists, big consultancy, but the people. And they both, in their own way, had a really profound impact on American politics. And until Trump, we didn't really have the conservative populist mindset, which is, in my mind, the dominant strain of thinking in the Republican electorate. We didn't have that well represented, and certainly not by someone who would call out both parties, which was refreshing in 2016.
Laura, if there's a major theme in your book, what do you think? What's the major theme of the book?
Political philosophy is fine, and debating the niceties of political philosophy is what people spend a lot of time doing in think tanks in Washington, D.C. But in the end, politics is about winning, and it's about making life better for the average American. I mean, if you're going to be governing the country, your goal should not be how do we export democracy to a country in the Middle East. Your goal should be how do I deliver more power to the people? How do the people get empowered? And how do we disempower the bureaucracy in order for the average man to have more control over his life? And if you're not doing that, then you're not really serving the interests of the people. You might be serving the interests of Big Pharma or Goldman Sachs or the World Trade Organization, but you're not really serving the interests of the people. America will thrive and be prosperous if our politicians are held accountable for how their policies actually affect the national understanding, our historical understanding, patriotism, civic pride, our ability to make a decent living, even if we didn't, get perfect scores in our SATs and didn't go to a fancy school. I mean, we need to be able to have an economy that works for the average person. So that is the dominant fight in the country right now. What is America today? What does America mean to you today? Is it just another country in a global order, or is it still that shining city on the hill that deserves to be protected and conserved, which is conservatism, conserve America. So it's the fight still between the elites and the average person who I think makes America tick. And the book tells the narrative of this going all the way back to, really Nixon and the silent majority, all the way up to Trump, America first. Populism is the wave of the future. Conservative populism is the winning philosophy, properly articulated and implemented.
Laura, I know we're up against it on time, but I just want to ask you one final question. What was the most surprising thing that you discovered when you researched and wrote this book? What kind of stood out? What sort of stood out at you when you were writing this book that just kind of surprised or shocked you?
Well, I guess in looking back on it, and I've known Trump for 13 years or so, how fascinating it was that a guy from Manhattan who grew up as a son of privilege could have a better handle on the hopes and dreams of the average American than the professional politician in Washington who had been the so-called expert in how to win elections, and how when he refused to apologize time and again, they asked him to apologize for various things he said, and he wouldn't do it. And he wouldn't do it because he knew that once he started apologizing, they would never let him stop apologizing. So a billionaire is able to connect with the average working person better than the Bushes, the Clintons, the Marco Rubios, the Ted Cruzes. That's pretty interesting.
We have been talking with Laura Ingraham. She's got her own show now on Fox News. She's got a book out. I'm telling you, it'll knock your socks off. I read it in 2 sittings. Really well written, full of fascinating information. And I think her thesis is spot on. Billionaire at the Barricades, the Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump. Laura, I know people can get it on Amazon. Is there any other website they can get it from?
Well, it's great to support your local bookstores. We really need that gathering place for people to buy books, consume information. I'm a big supporter of bookstores, so bookstores are the best place to get it. But of course, Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. It's at Walmart, Costco, all the major retailers. But it's an important historical and personal take on the rise of the populist movement. It's also gaining traction, of course, across Europe. But this is the big debate today. You have to understand where it came from. It didn't come out of a vacuum. It's been long in the making.
Laura, if you don't mind me asking, when does your show start officially?
October 30th. Yeah, 10 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be a little bit unpredictable. Politics at the core, but life is about more than politics. So we're going to be exploring the challenges of parenting and technology and the culture and Hollywood and all the rest. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to bring a lot of new voices hitting these issues from all interesting angles. So I think people are going to enjoy it, and I hope laugh every now and then. Jeff, we need to laugh at the end of the day.
Laura, I'm just curious. You going to have my good friend Michael Savage on?
Hello, of course. Got to get you on too, my friend.
Laura, I'd love to do it. Listen, congratulations, by the way. Really, I've read your books, all of your books. I've loved them, but I think this one could be your crown jewel. Honestly, congratulations. Phenomenal job. Laura Ingraham, Fox News host, best-selling author. The book again, Billionaire at the Barricades, The Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump. Laura, keep up the good fight. God bless you.
God bless you, Jeff. Thanks so much.
Take care. 617-266-6868 is the number. My friends, it's an incredible book. I'm telling you, I loved it. I didn't read it. I inhaled it. I urge all of you, go out and buy it. 617-266-6868. Barbara Walters. Is it time for her to apologize? What do I mean by that? More of your calls. That story next. When will Barbara Walters apologize? That's the question. Look, I'm not saying this is the story of the century here, but I just don't want that old bag to get away with it. I really don't. So here is Barbara Walters, the doyen of the liberal media press corps. Okay? She's the one that broke the ultimate glass ceiling, the first news anchor woman, blah, blah, blah. And the left has lionized her for decades. And so, in an interview in 2013 on The View, Corey Feldman, a child actor, and I really feel bad for Corey, I got to tell you this, he talks about having been sexually abused and molested as a child actor in Hollywood, as well as with his friend who ended up committing suicide, Corey Haim. And so everybody's talking about the Harvey Weinstein scandal. Nobody wanted to blow the whistle. Nobody wanted to go public. Well, there's Corey Feldman spilling his guts out on The View. They're on the couch with Barbara Walters and a couple of the other women that are there. And he's going on about how the most powerful people in Hollywood, moguls, business people, producers, constantly molested him, took advantage of him, and they're still working in Hollywood. And I want you to listen to Barbara Walters' response. So, 2013, The View. This is Corey Feldman and Barbara Walters. Roll it, Brittany.
I'm saying that there are people that were the people that did this to both me and Corey that are still working, they're still out there, and they're some of the richest, most powerful people in this business.
And they are.
And they do not want me saying what I'm saying right now.
Are you saying that they're pedophiles?
Yes.
And that they're still in this business?
Yes.
That's what, and that's what you're saying in your book. When you talk to when you talk to
and
parents,
they don't want me here right now. Trust
Corey,
me. They want me dead.
There are a lot of parents out here who want to put their kids in this business. Their kids are cute, they're great actors. Da, da, da. What would you say to a parent who just has the best of intentions, who's coming here with their child? If you're saying that there's a lot of predators in this industry.
It's a many-feathered bird. Okay? Be careful what you wish for. That's what I'll tell you. You know, don't go into it with naivety. Don't go into it thinking that it's all roses and sunglasses.
You're damaging an entire industry.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to say that it's a very important, serious topic.
You said that there was one gentleman in the industry who did not take advantage of you. He was not a pedophile. You said it was Michael Jackson.
Of all people.
That to me is amazing. But anyway, so apparently Michael Jackson did not, I guess he's the only guy that didn't take advantage of him. Now, you're damaging an entire industry. Oh my God, how dare you do that?
Roses and sunglasses.
You're damaging an entire industry.
Oh my
God.
God.
I'm not trying to.
To me, why is Corey apologizing? The poor guy got molested repeatedly, and you're apologizing to that hack, that liberal hack? No, let me tell you what happened, my friend. Okay, here's what happened, my friends. She made her money and her career on access to the rich and powerful in Hollywood. That was her currency. That was her cachet. So she didn't want everybody to know what a cesspool Hollywood was, how it was full of sexual predators and child molesters and pedophiles. So she tried to cover it up. She slams him when he's trying to blow the whistle. Shame on you. And there's a huge backlash brewing, but I want more than just a backlash. I don't want her to just be shamed. I want her to apologize. Apologize to Corey and to all the abuse victims in Hollywood. Because you know what you are, Barbara Walters? You're an enabler. That's all you did was enable for your 30 pieces of silver. Shame on you. Huge local story. You gotta hear it to believe it. Next.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 93.7 WEEI HD2 Lawrence, Boston. It's 2 o'clock.